We're approaching the midway point in the NBA season, and certainly we have seen the changing of the guard between pretty much these 6 guys as your MVP front runners. It's been one of these guys and also Steph Curry, so maybe we'll just say 7. But Steph Curry is down at 10th on our trusty basketballreference.com MVP award tracker. But this video today is going to be about Nikola Jokic, and specifically the idea of three-peating as an NBA MVP. So we have to start this off by putting it into perspective. The rarity of this feat, should it be achieved by one Nikola Jokic. But basically, Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, and Larry Bird, it's been roughly 40 years since the last person did this. LeBron didn't do it, Kareem didn't do it, Michael Jordan didn't do it. Let me start off by saying voter fatigue is extremely real when you talk about bias, when you talk about why certain guys didn't win the award 3 times in a row maybe. You would like to give it to somebody else, let somebody else have a turn, especially for a player like Nikola Jokic, and this is where the conversation really becomes a little bit controversial with people. A lot of the casual fan base of the NBA, people that follow the NBA at a distance, they know your Steph Currys and LeBrons, KDs, Giannis's, etc. Nikola Jokic is not the same household name as those guys, or even like a Luka Doncic, because he's not the most individualized player. He's not the most flashy player. His highlights are not on SportsCenter every night, but the guy just wins games. He does the most with the least, and he is incredibly durable. He plays every season, and he balls out every single year. He gets better every single year, and this year, in particular, he is very, very close to averaging a triple-double. His assist rate is rising. We might, at the end of the year, be talking about a guy averaging a triple-double, which, as we know, Russell Westbrook did a couple years ago and won an MVP as a 6th seed. Nikola Jokic has a legitimate chance to average a triple-double as a number 1 seed. And in the event that he does that, how can we say no? How can we give it to somebody else? Joel Embiid is putting up a lot of 50-point games. He is making his case. We might yet again have a year where Joel Embiid is the runner-up, and he is so good, but his team has a worse record than the Nuggets, and he's overshadowed, and he loses out to the MVP again. Now, this is the year where if he really averages like 34 or 35 points by the end of the year, he might just get it if he's like top 3 in the East. But Nikola Jokic, given what he's got with his team, the Nuggets are a good team around him, but to compare the supporting cast of a team like the Nuggets to a team like the Celtics around Jason Tatum, to a team like the Grizzlies even around John Morant, it's night and day. Think about when Nikola Jokic comes off the court, who is playing center. I mean, they got DeAndre Jordan on the team for this purpose. He hasn't even been playing. They had Zeke Naji in the game. Sometimes it's an Aaron Gordon small ball. If this guy was to miss any significant time, this team would fall in the standings. They'd free fall. And the fact that he's able to stay healthy every year is a testament to what this team can do, especially considering how bad they've been over the last couple years without him. Like last year, the reason he wins MVP despite being like a 6th seed, and his team did win, I think 49 games. A 6th seed in the West last year was like a 2 or 3 seed in the East or something. It was all goofed up. But the Joker was playing with a bunch of bums last year. The team around him was terrible, and he made these guys look good because he's a team player. He's not a stat padding player. He's not out there looking to score. He's legitimately a pass first, pass second, score third guy who's averaging 25 points per game. He wants to involve his team as much as possible. Best passing big man we've ever seen in the NBA. And the numbers speak for themselves. I mean, 20-9 record with Michael Porter Jr. missing a lot of time. Jamal Murray is the so-called second best player on this team, which we can talk about that. He hasn't been the second best player on this team this season throughout the year. It's been Aaron Gordon. Jamal Murray has had some great games, but he's been inconsistent. He's been finding his footing coming back from that ACL, which is fine, but the support around Joker is not consistent. Aaron Gordon is consistent, but everybody else, you don't really know exactly what you're going to get from guys, especially a Jamal Murray. Bruce Brown has been awesome for this team. Bones Highland is a 6th man. Spark plug off the bench guy has shown some promise, but he's also shown some inconsistencies. And like I said, with the lack of bigs on this team outside of Joker, it speaks volumes about simply, his value to the team. Because if you took him off this team, what would we really have here? That's what I was saying last year. Like, if you took him off of the team last year, for whoever was getting mad that he wasn't, winning 55 games, like that team would have been the lottery, easy top 5 pick. So let's talk about the playoffs. And this is where we circle back to the conversation about him not really being the guy for casual fans to think about first when you're thinking about the NBA, to want to watch every single night. He obviously doesn't jump as high as a lot of guys, and the way he plays, it's determined by skill, finesse, and strength, but also by craft that isn't necessarily, smooth to the casual fan. And that's probably why he's just not as big of a name as he is or doesn't have the biggest personality in the world. Joker has never been out of the second round of the playoffs. It's the same thing with Joel Embiid, although the circumstances, the context is different in those cases, like Joel Embiid having, teams that certainly disappointed. I mean, the Atlanta Hawks series comes to mind as the biggest disappointment for Joel Embiid personally, and he's had some meltdowns in the playoffs before that, but for a team that should have made it past that, like Nikola Jokic hasn't done that either. Now the Western Conference has been more difficult. He has dealt with more, like, all of his good players going out. I mean, how many times has he played in the series with Jamal Murray, with Michael Porter Jr. in a second round series with those guys? Not a lot, and he's certainly better than he was the last time that he did, but that's something that people take into account. Like, this guy's winning all the MVPs. Where is he in the playoffs? He's not worse in the playoffs, but it's just harder when your team isn't as good. Like, it really comes down to that. You play a more complete team, and if you play a team with other superstars on it, even if you're the best player in the series, if you're playing with, a bunch of bums, or to be nice, we can call them good role players or just role players. Some of these guys like Aaron Gordon, I mean, he's nice to have, but if Aaron Gordon's your second best player, are you going to beat a fully healthy Warriors team? Are you going to beat a fully healthy, even Grizzlies team? This is another concern that we can talk about. Like, when this team gets into the playoffs again this year, even if they're the 1 seed, if Jamal Murray isn't consistently, like, somewhere closer to that version of the bubble Jamal Murray, it's going to be a problem. This team is not going to win a championship if Jamal Murray is just a solid, good starter that can get 30 some nights, but then 10 or 15 other nights. He needs to be a star. But this is a team that doesn't have enough defense, and that is his biggest weakness. And that is the one thing you can point to as a critique of this guy. If you are down on this guy, you think he's overrated, I think the number one thing you have to say is the guy can be a liability on defense. Against certain teams, you could put this guy in a shit ton of pick and rolls, make him work on defense every possession. He doesn't have the greatest perimeter defenders on his team, which makes him have to do more on defense if they put him in pick and roll, and bad things can happen out of that. That is one thing I will say does not appear in the stats, and he is so good on the offensive end that it really does mask it most of the time. But in summary, I will say, if this team finishes the year as a 1 seed, if he has stats like this, and if he is still not getting significant contributions from either Jamal Murray or Michael Porter Jr., if they are still inconsistent or missing games, and despite all that, this team is still winning 55 games, I mean, whoever else is in the MVP conversation better be putting up a fight. Joel Embiid better be averaging a good 35 a game with a top 2 seed. And he'll probably get it if he does that. The East, it's contentious towards the top. But guys like Giannis, I mean, losing steam when your team loses a bunch of games like he has recently. Jason Tatum is kind of the same way with recent games. The Celtics, they've kind of regained their groove, but they had a bad stretch there. KD is a guy, a total dark horse in this that I haven't seen enough people talk about, with the Nets playing so well, and he has been electric all season. He should absolutely be in the conversation. I'm not going to sit here and act like it's a lock if Nikola Jokic does this and this, but if this guy finishes averaging a triple-double in the 1 seed, it's going to be undeniable. I don't know what you could say at that point. The other guy in the East better have some insane stats going for him, whoever is number 1 seed in the East, because that's the only way you could probably beat that. Even voter fatigue can't deny that, because you gave him the MVP twice. If he has that much better of a year in his 3rd year, are politics really going to come into play that much? You're just going to deny it if it is so obvious? I don't think it would. But like I said, there's no guarantee that it's going to be obvious. I don't know how accurate Basketball Reference Tracker actually is in terms of what the people who vote on this award might think. If Embiid is putting up the numbers that he's putting up and he can get his team into the top 2 seed, you probably just give it to Embiid because he hasn't got it the last 2 years and he was the runner-up. You do him dirty again and he has another season like that, I don't know, it might be a bad look. But yeah, it really depends on things look at the end of the year. And of course, we're not even close to that. So much more season to be played. So let me know what you guys think about the MVP award, specifically Nikola Jokic and the prospect of his 3-peat. Gonna be interesting to keep track of this. I got the odds here for anybody who's curious. And yeah, that's gonna do it. Let me know what you guys think of this, and peace.